Going to look at the 6 basic principles and the Federalist Papers. So we're going to read excerpts from the Federalist Papers and then decide which one of the principles the excerpt is kind of describing. So this first one says, we may define a republic to be, or at least may bestow that name on a government which derives all its powers directly or indirectly from the great body of the people. So this is saying that the source of power that a government gets from its people, that it be derived from the great body of the society. So again, oops, didn't mean to do that, but there we go. So what we're talking about here is popular sovereignty. So right here where it says basic principles, I'm not even going to try to type on this thing. Where it says basic principles, this is popular sovereignty. We are getting the power from the people, and that's what popular sovereignty is. Excerpt number 2, the idea of a national government involves in it not only an authority over the individual citizens, but an indefinite supremacy over all persons and things. In this relation, then, the proposed government cannot be deemed a national one, since its jurisdiction extends to certain enumerated objects. We're talking about the government here. The national government only has jurisdiction over a few numbered things. But then it leaves to the several states a residuary and inviolable sovereignty. So it says we are going to divide the power of this government that we're created into a national one, or a central government that has certain numbered powers, and it is limited to that. And then all the other powers are going to be left up to the states. And so that is federalism, this idea that we have a division of power between the national government that has only certain enumerated or listed powers. Every other power is going to be left up to the states. And the other thing that this does, it's limiting the government, because it's saying that this government, this central government that we are created, is limited to just this numbered things, and then the states have all the other powers. So this would be federalism, that division of power, but it would also be limited government. The third one, to what expedient then shall we finally resort for maintaining in practice the necessary partition of power among the several departments? So we are going to separate the powers among 3 branches of government. So that's separation of powers. As laid down in the Constitution, the great security against a gradual concentration of the several powers in the same department. Still going on talking about we're going to separate these powers. Consists in giving to those who administer each department the necessary constitutional means and personal motives to resist encroachments of the others. So this is where it's talking about how they are going to check each other. So separating powers into 3 branches of government is separation of powers. Giving them power over each other to check and make sure that they're balancing the power so that no one of those branches becomes too powerful is that idea of checks and balances. This is very important. They are not the same. Separation of powers is putting the power in the legislative, executive, and judicial. Checks and balances is saying that they have checks on each other. They can overrule one another so that no one branch becomes too powerful. Excerpt 4. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, obliged to control itself. So what we're looking at here is, and this is going to probably undo itself, limited government. Next one, in the compound Republic of America, the power surrendered by the people is first divided between 2 distinct governments: federalism, state governments, national government, and then the portion allotted to each subdivided amongst distinct and separate departments, separation of powers. Hence, a double security rises to the rights of the people. So we are securing the rights of the people. The different governments will control each other at the same time that each will be controlled by itself. So here we're looking at federalism, we're looking at separation of powers, and if you wanted to add limited government to this, which I guess we could add to each one of them. Excerpt 6. Where the will of the legislature declared in its statutes stands in opposition to that of the people declared in the Constitution, the judges ought to be governed by the latter, which is the Constitution, rather than the former. They ought to regulate their decisions by the fundamental laws rather than by those which are not fundamental. So this is idea that the courts have judicial review over what the government is going to do. According to Excerpt 1, what is the definition of a republic? The definition from Excerpt 1 is that government gets its power from the people. They elect officials. The people have a say in their government. So we elect officials, or the people elect officials, and that's where the government gets its power. Why is the government outlined in the Constitution not merely a national government? That national government has limited powers. All other powers go to the states. And then the government must control the governed, but also control itself. Based on the other excerpts, briefly explain how the Constitution provides for the government to control itself by separation of powers and a system of checks and balances put in place.